Isn't learning a language really hard? Spending hours every day reading, listening, and speaking, yet sometimes wondering if you are actually improving? That feeling of start creeps in, and before you know it, you start drifting away from language learning. How do I know? Because that was exactly my story. In fact, even now I feel the same way sometimes when I study English and Spanish. But I was able to push through that phase after finding a powerful motivation, understanding why I should learn language. Not just for better job prospects or good grades at school, but because I realized the true value of language learning. Looking back, I wish I had known this sooner. I wouldn't have wasted so much time wandering around. So today I want to share with you the real reason why learning a language is so important. By the end of this video, you will feel like a miner who exactly knows where the gold is. You will realize the true value of your time and effort you invest. And you will gain a new source of motivation for learning language. So let's get started. Have you ever wondered what kind of life would I be living if I were born in another country? What if I were born in the US and studied at the Ivy League school? What if I were in India preparing for engineering entrance exams? What if I were in Pirate in Somalia? Even though you are still you, your life would completely different, right? Let me share real-life examples. A study published in Science Alert analyzed a pair of identical twins who were separated at a young age and raised in South Korea and the US, respectively. These twins, born in Seoul in 1974, had vastly different lives. The younger twin B went missing at the age of 2 and was later adopted by an American family. The results of the study were astonishing. The twins had drastically different IQ scores with a 16-point difference between them. Personality-wise, twin A, who grew up in Korea, had strong collectivist values, while twin B, who grew up in the US, had a highly individualistic mindset. This case shows that within us there exists multiple potential personalities. However, since we just only have one life, we typically live just one version of ourselves. But what if we could learn a new language? Benjamin Hope, famous for his linguistic relativity theory, said, "Languages shape the way we think and determines what we can think about." And Ludwig Wittgenstein, one of the most influential philosophers of the 20th century, stated, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." If you can't think in another language, you can essentially live in another life. Language isn't just a tool for communication. It allows you to internalize the culture and the mindset of the people who speak it. It's like gaining an entirely new personality. You might ask, why would I want a new personality? Why does having a new way of thinking matter? I like who I am now. Have you ever played a game where you get to choose a class, like mage, warrior, rogue, or archer? Usually, you can only pick that one and develop that character. Each class has its own unique abilities. But learning a new language is like unlocking all the classes in one character. You become an overpowered character in real life. To help you understand, here are some real-life examples. The first example is my own. When I was learning English, the biggest shift I noticed was how naturally individualistic thinking became. For example, in Korean, addresses are written from the largest area down to the smallest. But in English, it's opposite. You start with your house number and then move outward. Even when writing, I is always capitalized in English, no matter where it appears in a sentence. Even when writing names, it's the same. In Korean, the family name comes first, followed by my given name. But what about in English? The given name comes first and the family name comes after. It's always me first. At first, I didn't think much about this. But as I used English more, I found myself naturally becoming more confident in expressing my own opinions because me first. A specific example, we use honorifics. So when speaking to someone older or higher status, there's often brief hesitation before speaking. The hierarchy is built into the language itself. So whenever I need to speak someone in a higher position, I imagine having a conversation in English first. In my mind, English eliminates the hierarchical barrier, making communication smoother. Then when I actually speak in Korean, the hesitation disappears. This was real-life examples of how language can influence thought processes. Some Aboriginal tribes in Australia don't use words like left and right. Instead, they use absolute direction like east and west. For example, they'd say, "My east arm is hurting." This way of thinking even affects their perception of time. While most people think of time as moving from left to right, These tribes see time flowing from east to west based on the movements of the sun. Because of the language structure, they have an extraordinary sense of direction and never get lost. In the Eskimo language, there are dozens of words for snow. They don't just have one generic term, but specific words for falling snow, packed snow, melting snow, and so on. This linguistic detail developed because snow is crucial for their survival. The Piraha people of the Amazon have no words for exact number like 1, 2, or 3. Instead, they use only relative terms like a few and a lot. Because of that, they can't count precisely. If you ask them to count 7 dogs, they won't be able to do it. They perceive quantity in a completely different way compared to us. This is amazing examples of how language shapes our fundamental cognitive abilities. Alright, let's dive into how language actually shapes our way of thinking. From a neuroscience perspective, learning a language activates specific parts of the brain. Here are the key areas involved. Hippocampus. When you learn a new language, the neural networks in your hippocampus strengthen, improving your long-term memory. Prefrontal cortex. Multilingual people have a more developed and active prefrontal cortex, which is linked to decision-making and cognitive flexibility. Broca's areas and Wernicke's area. These areas are crucial for language processing, and learning multiple languages make the neural connection in these regions more intricate. So yeah, we get it. Language learning changes the brain. Something about hippocampus, prefrontal cortex, Broca's and Wernicke's area, and how the brain changes in a positive way. Okay, I get that, but why? Why does it change in the first place? Personally, I believe that reality shifts according to our patterns of thought. In other words, the language we use, the words we choose, actively shape the reality we experience. For example, people often use self-affirming phrase like I can do it. But it's not just about gaining confidence. Saying it repeatedly and truly believe it creates a reality where it actually becomes possible for them. So the fact that learning a language changes your brain is proof that language shapes reality. The more you immerse yourself in a language, the more you absorb the worldview embedded within it. In a way, mastering a language gives you the ability to tap into the collective consciousness of the culture and shape your own reality accordingly. Of course, not everyone agrees that language fully determines thought. Some scholars argue language influences thinking, but other factors like culture and personal experiences play a bigger role. In other words, the language shapes the way we think. It's not the sole factor that defines our worldview. So does that mean language learning alone isn't enough? Exactly. If you truly want to expand your thinking and develop a richer perspective, you need to do 2 things. First, writing in target language to structure thoughts. Second, understanding culture through proverbs and interaction. We will talk about writing first. Many successful people emphasize the importance of writing as a tool for refining thought. Jeff Bezos, Amazon CEO, he required executives to write 6-page memos instead of using PowerPoint in meetings, believing that writing forces clear thinking. Warren Buffett, investor, he once said, "There is nothing like writing to force you to think and get your thoughts straight." Writing isn't just about communication. It's about structuring thoughts and making them sharper. When you learn a new language, don't just practice speaking. Write. It will help you internalize the logic and values embedded in the language. Another key of mastering a language is understanding the culture behind it. And whenever the best way to do this? Studying proverbs. Proverbs are like a window into a culture's collective mindset. They reflect the fundamental beliefs and values of the people who speak that language. Beyond that, real-life interaction with native speakers are crucial. Having deep conversation, asking questions, and immerse yourself in their way of thinking will take your language skills beyond grammar and vocabulary. And consuming local content, TV shows, books, podcasts, also helps you internalize a culture's way of thinking and expressing ideas. So what language should you learn? If you are an English and European language speaker, I highly recommend learning Korean. On the other hand, if you speak Chinese, Japanese, or Mongolian, learning English would be a great choice. The reason is simple. Learning a language that is structurally different from your native language brings greater cognitive changes. According to a study conducted at the University of Minnesota and Pennsylvania State University, native English speakers were divided into 2 groups. One learning Chinese and the other learning French. Both groups participated in an intensive 6-month language learning program. MRI scans show that the group learning Chinese experienced greater structure change in the frontal and temporal lobes of the brain. In short, if you want to experience the new way of thinking, it's best to choose a language that is vastly different from what you are used to. And among languages with complete different structures from English and European languages, I feel Korean is the easiest to learn. Well, maybe I'm a little biased as a Korean, but honestly, it's also a lot more fun. And I'm sure Korean is the easiest language to learn among those with vastly different structure from English and European language. Just like how day and night, masculine and feminine energy need balance, language also needs to find harmony. And Korean stands in stark contrast to English and European languages in many ways. This means those language speakers can fill in the gaps in their thinking through Korean. Honestly, today I also want to talk about how Korean shape your thinking. But it wouldn't take too long, so I will cover it in another piece of content. For now, I think you truly understand why learning a language is important. So are you living as just one version of yourself, or are you fully embracing who you really are?